Her mother married her off to a lonely duke for being too old and plain. Yet his love made her the envy of London. She was told she was too plain, too old, too unremarkable to ever find love. Then a grieving duke proved everyone wrong. Hello, lovely. If you're drawn to stories of unexpected beauty, hearts that see beyond the surface, and love that transforms everything it touches, I'd be so grateful for a like or subscribe. It helps me bring you more tales of hope, redemption, and discovering your worth when the world says you have none. And if you're up for it, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every note, and it always fills my heart with joy. Asterisk, asterisk, 1, asterisk, asterisk. Lucille Darcy stood before the mirror in her modest bedroom and saw exactly what everyone else saw. A plain young woman with unremarkable features and a figure that would never turn heads. At 25, she had long accepted that beauty was not her gift. Her brown hair hung limp and dull. Her face was too round, her eyes too small, her complexion too sallow. She was, in every measurable way, ordinary. Stop staring at yourself with such despair. Her mother's sharp voice cut through the quiet. Lady Fay Darcy swept into the room, her expression a mixture of determination and barely concealed disappointment. We have matters to discuss. Lucille turned from the mirror, her stomach knotting with familiar dread. When her mother used that tone, it meant decisions had been made without Lucille's consultation. Decisions that would shape her life, whether she agreed or not. Sit down, Lady Fay commanded, gesturing to the worn settee by the window. Lucille obeyed, folding her hands in her lap, as she had been taught since childhood. Be quiet, be obedient, be grateful for whatever scraps life offered. Those were the lessons her mother had drilled into her for as long as she could remember. I have secured you a marriage, Lady Fay announced without preamble. To the Duke of Windermere. Lucille's breath caught. The Duke of Windermere. Even she, isolated as she was from society's finest circles, knew that name. Alistair Weston, one of the wealthiest peers in England, owner of vast estates, and a man society whispered about with a mixture of respect and pity. The Duke? Lucille's voice came out as barely a whisper. But mother, he is 47 years old, a widower of 10 years, and in need of a wife who will not demand romance or affection. Lady Fay interrupted. He requires someone practical, someone who understands duty. You are perfect for the role. The words landed like blows. Perfect because she was plain. Perfect because no one expected her to inspire love or passion. Perfect because she was too old and unremarkable to hope for anything better. I do not want to marry a man who cannot love me, Lucille said quietly, though she knew protest was futile. Love? Her mother's laugh was harsh. Lucille, look at yourself. You are 25 years old with no prospects, no beauty, and no fortune. We are barely maintaining appearances as it is. This marriage will save our family from complete ruin. The Duke has agreed to settle all our debts and provide a generous allowance. You will live in comfort, wanting for nothing material, but wanting for everything that matters, Lucille whispered. Sentiment is a luxury we cannot afford. Lady Fay's voice softened slightly, though her eyes remained hard. I have arranged for the wedding to take place in 3 weeks at Windermere Castle. You will do your duty, Lucille. For once in your unremarkable life, you will be useful. The words cut deeper than any blade. Lucille had always known her mother found her disappointing. Too quiet, too plain, too bookish, too everything that made her undesirable in a world that valued beauty and charm above all else. But hearing it stated so boldly still hurt. After her mother left, Lucille returned to the mirror. The woman staring back looked defeated, hollow. She had spent her life being told she was not enough, and now she was being sold to a man who wanted a wife precisely because she was not enough. A man who would never love her because love required something she apparently lacked. The 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparations that felt more like funeral arrangements than wedding planning. Lucille was measured for gowns, instructed on proper Duchess behaviour, and lectured endlessly about managing a grand household. No one asked if she was happy. No one seemed to care. The journey to Windermere Castle took 2 days by carriage. As they approached, Lucille caught her first glimpse of what would be her new home. The castle rose from the landscape, like something from a fairy tale. Ancient stone towers, sprawling wings, manicured gardens that stretched as far as she could see. It was magnificent and utterly intimidating. A butler met them at the entrance, his expression professionally neutral as he led them through halls, filled with priceless art and furnishings that spoke of centuries of wealth and power. Lucille felt herself shrinking with each step, becoming smaller and more insignificant in the face of such grandeur. "His Grace will meet you in the drawing room," the butler announced, showing them into a room that was larger than Lucille's entire house in London. Alistair Weston, Duke of Windermere, stood by the window, his back to them. He was tall, his shoulders broad, his posture rigid. When he turned, Lucille's first thought was that society had been right about one thing. He looked sad. Deep lines bracketed his mouth, and his grey eyes held a weariness that went beyond physical exhaustion. He was handsome in a severe way, his features sharp and aristocratic. But there was no warmth in his expression, as he studied Lucille with the same impersonal assessment one might give livestock at market. "Lady Lucille," he said, his voice deep and cultured, "I trust your journey was comfortable." "Yes, Your Grace. Thank you." "Good. The wedding is scheduled for tomorrow morning. My staff will see to your needs until then." That was it. No welcome, no attempt at conversation, no acknowledgement that they were about to bind their lives together. Just cold courtesy and efficient dismissal. Lady Fay, pleased that everything was proceeding according to plan, chattered about the arrangements, but Lucille barely heard. She was too busy trying not to cry, trying not to run from this place and this fate she had not chosen. The wedding ceremony the next morning was as cold and empty as Lucille had feared. She wore a beautiful gown that made her feel like a fraud, standing at the altar beside a man who looked at her with polite indifference. When he placed the ring on her finger, his touch was impersonal, perfunctory. When he kissed her at the ceremony's conclusion, his lips barely grazed hers. As bells rang and guests applauded, Lucille became the Duchess of Windermere, and she had never felt more alone. Asterisk, asterisk, 2, asterisk, asterisk. The first month of marriage passed in a fog of loneliness. Windermere Castle was vast, and Lucille often went days seeing Alistair only at dinner, where they maintained polite but distant conversation about weather and household matters. He was never cruel, never demanding, but he was never present either. He existed in her life, like a shadow, acknowledged but never substantial. Lucille spent her days exploring the castle and its grounds, finding solace in the extensive library and the gardens that were just beginning to bloom with spring flowers. The staff was kind but formal, maintaining the distance appropriate between servants and their duchess. No one engaged her beyond professional necessity. Her mother had returned to London, satisfied that Lucille was settled. She sent occasional letters full of advice about maintaining a proper household and reminding Lucille how fortunate she was. Fortunate. The word tasted bitter. Lucille took to reading in the garden, losing herself in novels where plain heroines found love and happiness. Fiction, she knew, but it was better than her reality. She was sitting beneath a willow tree one afternoon, absorbed in a particularly moving passage, when she heard footsteps. Alistair stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "Forgive the intrusion. I was walking and saw you here. It is your garden, Your Grace. You need not apologize for walking in it." "Alistair," he said quietly, "we are married. You should call me Alistair." "As you wish." But the formal distance remained. He gestured to the book in her hands. "What are you reading?" "Jane Eyre." "Have you read it?" "Years ago. Isabella, my first wife, she loved that novel. Said it gave her hope that even plain women could find passionate love." The comment stung, though Lucille knew he had not meant it cruelly. Just an observation, a memory of a woman he had loved. A woman who was not plain, according to the portrait Lucille had seen hanging in the gallery. Isabella had been beautiful, delicate features, golden hair, the kind of woman poets wrote about. "I should let you return to your reading," Alistair said, already turning away. "Wait." The word escaped before Lucille could stop it. "Would you like to sit, just for a moment?" He hesitated, clearly surprised by the invitation. Then, to Lucille's greater surprise, he sat on the bench beside her, maintaining a careful distance. "Do you miss her terribly?" Lucille asked softly. "Your first wife?" Alistair was silent for so long she thought he would not answer. Then he said, "Every day. Isabella died 10 years ago, and I have not stopped missing her for a single moment. The grief has dulled, but it never disappears. I am sorry, that must be a heavy burden to carry. It is the price of having loved deeply." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Lucille saw something shift in his expression. "You must think me a poor husband, marrying you when my heart is still buried with my first wife." "I think you are honest," Lucille said carefully, "and I prefer honesty to false promises. Your mother said you were practical. She was right." They sat in silence for a few more minutes before Alistair excused himself and left. But something had changed. A crack had appeared in the wall between them, small but significant. The next evening, Lucille was reading in the library when Alistair entered. "I thought I might find you here," he said. "I seem to spend most of my time among books," Lucille admitted. "They make better company than most people I have known. A sad commentary on the people you have known. Perhaps. Or perhaps I am simply not the kind of person who inspires better treatment." Alistair frowned. "Why would you say that?" "Because it is true. I have been told my entire life that I am too plain, too quiet, too unremarkable to inspire affection. My own mother married me off because she knew no one would choose me otherwise." "Your mother is a fool." The bluntness of the statement shocked Lucille into silence. "Forgive me," Alistair said, "but any mother who makes her daughter believe she is unworthy of love is a fool. Beauty is common, Lucille. Walk through any ballroom and you will find a dozen beautiful faces. But intelligence, kindness, depth of character, those qualities are rare and far more valuable." Lucille felt tears prick her eyes. "You do not have to be kind." "I am not being kind. I am being truthful." He moved closer, studying her face in the lamplight. "When I agreed to this marriage, I expected a practical arrangement with a woman who understood duty. What I did not expect was to find someone who actually listens when I speak, who does not demand constant attention, who seems content with quiet companionship. Those qualities are more precious than you realize." "I thought you wanted a wife who would leave you alone," Lucille said. "I thought I did too, but these past weeks, the moments we have shared, brief as they are, have made the house feel less empty. I find myself hoping for more of them." It was the most personal thing he had said since their wedding. Lucille did not know how to respond, so she simply smiled, and Alistair smiled back. It was small, barely there, but it was real. That night, For the first time since arriving at Windermere, Lucille went to bed with something that felt almost like hope. Asterisk, asterisk. 3, asterisk, asterisk. Over the following weeks, Lucille and Alistair developed a tentative friendship. He began joining her in the garden in the afternoons, and they would talk about books, philosophy, the estate, anything and everything. Lucille discovered that beneath his stern exterior, Alistair was intelligent, thoughtful, and surprisingly funny when he allowed himself to be. She learned about his work with the tenants, his charitable efforts in the surrounding villages, his passion for improving agricultural methods. He was not the cold, heartless aristocrat society believed him to be. He was simply a man who had been broken by loss and had forgotten how to show the world his better self. Lucille spent time with the household staff, learning the routines of running such a vast estate. The housekeeper, Mrs. Pemberton, was initially formal, but gradually warmed to Lucille's genuine interest and kind treatment. "His Grace is different since you arrived, my lady," Mrs. Pemberton said one morning as they reviewed the week's menu. "He smiles more, seems less weighed down." "Does he?" Lucille tried to keep her voice casual, but her heart raced at the observation. "Indeed. We had feared he would spend the rest of his days mourning the first Duchess. But you have brought light back into this house." The words stayed with Lucille throughout the day. Could it be true? Could she, plain and unremarkable as she was, actually be making a difference in Alistair's life? That evening, she found him in his study, reviewing estate documents by lamplight. "May I disturb you?" she asked from the doorway. "You are never a disturbance." He set down his papers and gestured to the chair across from his desk. "In fact, I was hoping you might join me. I have something I wish to discuss." Lucille sat, her hands folded nervously in her lap. "What is it?" "London season begins in a few weeks. As Duchess of Windermere, you will be expected to participate in society events. I have avoided London for years, but with you as my wife, I believe it is time to rejoin the world." "You do not have to do that for me," Lucille said quickly. "I am quite content here." "Are you, truly?" Alistair studied her face. "Lucille, you are 25. You should be dancing at balls, attending the theatre, engaging with people your own age. I have kept you isolated here. I prefer isolation to the cruelty of society." "What cruelty?" The question was gentle, but Lucille felt tears threaten. The whispers, the pitying looks, the constant reminders that I am not beautiful or charming enough to belong in their world. I grew up enduring that, Alistair. I have no desire to return to it. He came around the desk and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Then they are all blind fools. Lucille, look at me." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "You are the most remarkable woman I have known in a decade. Your intelligence, your kindness, the way you listen without judgment, the way you see people for who they truly are rather than what they present these qualities, make you extraordinary. If society cannot see that, the fault lies with them, not you. You are just saying that to make me feel better." "I am saying it because it is true, and because I have realized something over these past weeks." He paused, his grip on her hands tightening slightly. "I have realized that what began as duty has become something more. You matter to me, Lucille. Your happiness matters to me. I want the world to see what I see when I look at you." Lucille's breath caught. "What do you see?" "Beauty. Real beauty. The kind that goes deeper than skin. The kind that makes me want to be better. To laugh again, to live again, instead of merely existing." Tears spilled down Lucille's cheeks. "I thought I was just a convenient arrangement." "You were never just anything." Alistair reached up and gently wiped away her tears. "You have awakened something in me I thought dead. Hope, joy, the possibility of happiness. That is not convenience, Lucille, that is magic." They sat together in the study's lamplight, hands joined, something profound shifting between them. The walls that had kept them apart were crumbling, revealing the foundation of something real and precious beneath. "Will you come to London with me?" Alistair asked softly. "Will you let me show society that they were wrong about you?" Lucille thought about it. The fear was still there, the old insecurities whispering their familiar refrains. But something new whispered, too courage borrowed from Alistair's faith in her, strength born from seeing herself through his eyes. "Yes," she said, "I will go to London with you." Alistair smiled, and Lucille realized she was seeing him truly happy for the first time since they had met. "Then we shall dazzle them together. Asterisk, asterisk, 4, asterisk, asterisk. London was exactly as Lucille remembered, loud, crowded, overwhelming. But this time she did not face it alone. Alistair remained at her side through every social obligation, his presence a constant source of strength. Their first appearance was at a ball hosted by the Duchess of Marlborough. As they entered the ballroom, conversation faltered. All eyes turned to them, the reclusive Duke of Windermere and his plain new wife. Lucille heard the whispers begin immediately. "That is the new Duchess? How disappointing. Poor Duke. He could have had anyone, and he chose her. She looks like a governess, not a duchess." Lucille's steps faltered, but Alistair's hand tightened on hers. He led her directly to the centre of the ballroom and turned to face her. "Dance with me," he said, his voice loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Dance with me, so everyone can see what I see, the most beautiful woman in this room." Shocked silence rippled outward. Then the orchestra began a waltz, and Alistair pulled Lucille into his arms with a confidence that took her breath away. As they moved across the floor, Alistair smiled down at her with such warmth that Lucille forgot about the watching crowd. "You are doing wonderfully," he murmured. "They are all staring. Let them stare. Let them see that the Duke of Windermere has chosen his Duchess, not for her face, but for her heart, and let them witness that he has never been happier." Around them, opinions began to shift. If the Duke was this attentive, this clearly besotted, perhaps there was something they had missed. Perhaps plain Lucille Darcy possessed qualities invisible to the casual eye. Over the following weeks, Lucille and Alistair became regular fixtures in London society. Alistair ensured she was always dressed in the finest gowns, wore the Windermere jewels, and was treated with the respect due a duchess. But more than that, he made his affection for her obvious. He danced with her at every ball. He sought her opinion in conversations with important politicians and intellectuals, showing that he valued her mind. He looked at her with such open admiration that even the most skeptical observers had to acknowledge something real existed between them. One evening at the theatre, Lady Helena Ashford, a beautiful woman who had once hoped to marry Alistair, approached during intermission. Her smile was sharp and assessing as she looked Lucille over. "How delightful to finally meet the new Duchess of Windermere," Lady Helena said. "You must be so pleased to have secured such an advantageous match." The implication was clear. Lucille had trapped Alistair through some scheme, not won him through genuine merit. "I am pleased," Lucille said calmly, "but not because of advantage. I am pleased because I married a man who sees beauty in unexpected places, who values substance over superficiality, and who has taught me that worth is not determined by features but by character." Lady Helena's smile faltered. Alistair appeared at Lucille's elbow, his hand settling possessively at her waist. "Lady Helena, I trust you are well. though I must steal my wife away. There are many who wish to make her acquaintance." As they walked away, Alistair leaned down and whispered, "That was magnificently done." "Was it too harsh?" "It was perfect, though I wish you believed those words as deeply as you spoke them." Lucille looked up at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you still see yourself as plain, as less than. I see it in your eyes when we are in crowds, the way you shrink as though trying to disappear." "Lucille, when will you see yourself as I see you?" "I am trying," she admitted. "But a lifetime of believing one thing does not change overnight. Then I will spend every day reminding you until you believe it." That night, at a grand ball hosted by the Duke of Marlborough, something remarkable happened. A young woman approached Lucille during a moment when Alistair was engaged in conversation with a parliamentary colleague. "Your Grace," the woman said with a curtsy, "I am Lady Catherine Winters. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For showing us that there are different kinds of beauty, that intelligence and kindness matter more than perfect features. I have always felt plain myself, always believed I would never be valued. But watching you and the Duke, seeing how he treasures you, has given me hope that perhaps love does not require perfection." Lucille felt tears prick her eyes. "You are not plain, Lady Catherine. You are exactly as you should be, and any man worth having will see that." After Lady Catherine walked away, Lucille stood in the ballroom, feeling something shift fundamentally inside her. She had spent so long believing she was less than, unworthy of love or admiration. But perhaps, just perhaps, she had been wrong. Perhaps the flaw was not in her, but in the world that measured worth by such shallow standards. Asterisk, asterisk, 5, asterisk, asterisk. 3 months after arriving in London, Lucille and Alistair attended a ball at Devonshire House. As they entered, Lucille noticed something different in how people looked at her. Not with pity or disdain, but with respect, even admiration. "They are staring," she whispered to Alistair. "Because you are radiant," he replied. "You have no idea how you have changed since we married, Lucille. You carry yourself with confidence now. You smile more. You shine." Lucille glanced at a mirror on the wall and barely recognized herself. Same brown hair, same round face, same features that had always been called plain, but something was different. Her eyes sparkled with life. Her posture was straight and proud. Her expression was open and warm. She looked happy. And happiness, she realized, was its own kind of beauty. Later that evening, Alistair led her to the private garden behind the ballroom. Lanterns hung from trees, casting golden light over manicured lawns and blooming flowers. "I have something to tell you," Alistair said, taking both her hands in his. "Something I have been waiting for the right moment to say." Lucille's heart raced. "What is it?" "I love you, Lucille. Not as a convenient wife, not as a pleasant companion, but as the woman who has brought light back into my life. I love your intelligence, your kindness, your quiet strength. I love the way you see the world with such compassion. I love who I am when I am with you, better, happier, more alive than I have been in a decade." Tears streamed down Lucille's face. "I love you too. I have been falling in love with you since that first afternoon in the garden. I just never believed you could feel the same." "How could I not, Lucille? You are extraordinary. And I intend to spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that again." He kissed her then, tender and passionate and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. "The Duke of Windermere and his Duchess," a voice called from the ballroom doorway. Other guests had spilled into the garden and were watching with undisguised interest and approval. Alistair kept his arm around Lucille's waist as they returned to the ball. For the rest of the evening, Lucille found herself surrounded by well-wishers, women wanting to talk with her, men asking Alistair for introductions to the remarkable Duchess who had captured his heart. One particularly sharp-tongued dowager approached near midnight. "Your Grace, I must confess I was sceptical when you married. I thought the Duke was making a mistake, settling for someone so ordinary. But I was wrong. You have become the most talked-about woman in London, not for scandal, but for showing us all what genuine worth looks like. You are not ordinary, my dear. You are extraordinary." After she walked away, Lucille turned to Alistair with wonder in her eyes. "Did that really just happen?" "It did, because it is true. You have become the envy of London, Lucille. Every woman here wishes she had what you have: a marriage built on genuine love and respect, a husband who adores her, and the confidence to be herself without apology." As the season continued, Lucille's transformation became legendary. Society matrons who had once dismissed her now sought her company. Young women looked to her as proof that beauty came in many forms. Invitations flooded Windermere House, all requesting the presence of the Duke and his remarkable Duchess. But the grandest triumph came not at a ball or party, but in a quiet moment 6 months after their wedding. Lucille was reading in the library at Windermere Castle when Alistair entered, carrying a portrait-sized canvas covered with cloth. "I commissioned this months ago," he said. "It arrived today. I wanted you to see it before it is hung in the gallery." He unveiled the portrait, and Lucille gasped. It showed her sitting in the garden beneath the willow tree, a book in her lap, sunlight filtering through leaves to illuminate her face. But what struck Lucille was the expression captured by the artist: peaceful, content, beautiful, in a way that had nothing to do with perfect features and everything to do with inner radiance. "Is that really how you see me?" she whispered. "That is exactly how I see you. How I have always seen you, even before you saw it yourself." Lucille stood and walked to the portrait, touching the painted face with trembling fingers. Her mother had told her she was too plain to inspire love. Society had dismissed her as unremarkable. She had believed them for so long. But looking at this portrait, seeing herself through Alistair's eyes, Lucille finally understood the truth. She had never been plain or unremarkable. She had simply been unseen by people, too shallow to look deeper. And now, loved by a man who saw her truly, she had become exactly what she had always been, but never believed: beautiful, worthy, extraordinary. "Hang it in the gallery," Lucille said, turning to Alistair with a smile, "right beside Isabella's portrait. Not to replace her or compete with her, but to show that love can find us more than once. That different kinds of beauty deserve to be celebrated. That sometimes the most precious things are the ones we do not expect." Alistair pulled her into his arms, holding her as though she was the most valuable treasure in all his estates. "I love you, Lucille Weston, Duchess of Windermere. My wife, my partner, my greatest unexpected blessing. And I love you. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself. Thank you for teaching me that worth is not given by others but found within. Thank you for loving me." They stood together in the library, surrounded by books and sunlight, and the promise of all their days to come. Lucille had been married off by a mother who saw her as a burden, to a man who was supposed to want nothing from her. Instead, she had found love that transformed her, not by changing who she was, but by revealing who she had always been. The plain, overlooked girl had become the Duchess whom all of London envied. Not for her beauty, but for something far more rare and precious, the kind of love that sees beyond surfaces to the extraordinary soul beneath. And that was the most beautiful thing of all. If this story of finding worth, unexpected love, and being seen for who you truly are touched your heart, please show your support with a like or subscribe. Your engagement helps me bring you more tales of hope, transformation, and discovering beauty in unexpected places. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. What did you think of Lucille and Alistair's journey? Did their love give you hope that real beauty lies within? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I treasure hearing which moments resonated with you. Until our next story, dear listeners, may you find someone who sees your true worth when the world overlooks you. This is your storyteller, reminding you that being unseen is not the same as being unworthy. Sometimes you just need the right eyes to recognize your light.